for grade 2, okay? But you could learn a lot of stuff if you really do what I asked you to do today. So in the end, we're going to start. Let me get this so it's in the computer. Okay. You can start if okay. See, we got this movie we're gonna watch first together.
Smoothie.
Well,
Time out. Okay, so let me see if I can go back. Here we go. Let's try it again. It's bigger. You guys see easier.
You're attacking me in Greenland, but we had a deal. That's the last time I trust you. Dear Tim and Moby, what caused World War II? From Fred. Well, it's a pretty complicated story, and it begins at the end of World War I. In 1918, Germany was defeated by the Allied powers, Great Britain, France, Italy, and the United States. According to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany had to take full responsibility for starting the war and paid $33 billion to the winners. These funds were called reparations. World War I took a heavy toll on the German economy, and the reparation payments were way more than it could handle. To pay the debt, Germany printed more money, but that caused inflation to spiral out of control and made German money worthless. The inflation crisis was eventually resolved, but Germany still faced lots of other problems. Since unemployment was high and the new democratic government didn't have broad support from the people, there was frequent civil unrest. And then the Great Depression began in 1929. Although it started in the US, it caused economic hardship around the world. In these tough times, the German people were looking for leaders to restore order and prosperity. So they turned to Adolf Hitler. He was the leader of the Nazi Party, a fascist political movement. Well, fascism is sort of hard to describe. Basically, it's a form of government where power is concentrated in a single dictator. It's centered around an extreme form of patriotism, or love for one's country, and celebrates military strength and brute force. Sure, patriotism is usually a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with having a strong military either. But fascism takes away citizens' individual freedoms. It also holds that strong countries have the right to invade and conquer weak ones. Anyway, when Hitler took power, he immediately started building up his army and manufacturing tanks and warplanes. This kick-started the economy and made him popular among the German people. It also violated the Treaty of Versailles, which forbade Germany from building a strong army. But the leaders of Britain and France let Hitler do it anyway. Well, World War I wasn't only tough on Germany. The British and French lost 2 million soldiers in the war and spent the equivalent of $60 billion on it. They wanted to avoid another war at all costs. And they assumed that Hitler felt the same way, and that he wouldn't start a war as long as they didn't provoke him. This policy of letting Hitler do what he wanted was called appeasement. Hitler soon allied himself with Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy. And later, the two of them made a pact with Imperial Japan, whose government was controlled by military generals. Together, they formed what became known as the Axis powers. During the 1930s, all three of these countries took over other nations. Japan took over parts of China, Italy invaded Ethiopia, and Germany annexed Austria. Yep, the international community let them get away with it. So Hitler started pushing to acquire even more territory. In 1938, the leaders of Britain and France met with Hitler and agreed to let him take over part of Czechoslovakia. Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, claimed this act would bring peace for our time. Yeah, in retrospect, he was wrong. But at the time, the agreement had wide popular support. Most people felt that Austria and Czechoslovakia weren't worth fighting a big war over. And some believed that Germany was rightfully reclaiming land it lost during World War I. However, when Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, Great Britain and France finally declared war. That was the beginning of World War II in Europe. The United States shipped supplies and weapons to France and England, but it wouldn't declare war or send troops. Meanwhile, the US tried to stop Japanese expansion with a trade embargo. That just means the United States ended all trade with Japan. Japan's reply came on December 7, 1941, when Japanese warplanes attacked American ships at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The U.S. declared war on Japan the very next day. A few days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., and that was the beginning of World War II for America. By the way, I'm attacking your armies in Madagascar.
Okay, so that was the end of that video that we were watching together, and it said a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the future too. But for right now, what I want you to do is open up your computer and go to the school website, Mr. D's school website, and he took the time to put things on there for these links. So then I'll explain to you. Once I see that you got it open, you get on his website, then I'll explain to you what we're gonna do next. Even if you're a little tired, this is our last class
God bless
today.
you.
Try to do the best you can, doing your work so you can get your points for doing your work in class today. Okay, so let me get over here so you can see the first one we're going to do. These flashcards, let me see, it's the 5th one down, okay? It says flashcards Quizlet. Oh, so if you got it open, let me see if everyone has a website. And Mr. D's website. Alright, you got it?
What are we doing?
Okay, let's see, we're at Mr. D's website, and the 5th one down, flashcards. I see some people found the flashcards already even. Okay. What we're gonna do then is, you're gonna put your headphones on, and you're going to practice, looking at these flashcards, and I'm gonna give you, like, 3 minutes, cause it's really just looking at one side and another, flipping it, like the cards you did for science, okay? But it's just electronic, okay? So go ahead and start that, click on that link, where it says flashcards, and then you click on the one side, and it says on the bottom, it flips it for you. And then you go on the arrow, it goes to the next card, click it again, and it flips it to the other side. Okay? So go ahead and try to start studying what it says on those cards.
Shonda Landis to the front lobby for pickup.
You can do these tomorrow, Sean, because they're on the websites. Okay? Don't worry. Do you know how we're supposed to be doing it? Oh, you already went through them all? Did you actually read what it said though? Okay. You could practice it again. Yeah, because we're gonna have quiz.
Ooh, that one. Ooh, that was a little.
Did you look at the next one? Sorry. See how it works?
40-some years ago. It's like 80 years ago. 80? Damn. Can you die some 80-some years ago? Man.
I'm done. Alright, so maybe you learned something new from that, from those flashcards, and I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes for the people that aren't done. Okay? So you're Alright, so we're gonna be done with that, and now look at Mr. D's website again.
Hi.
Let me see, I think I got it too.
Jeff, don't worry.
Yes, now, thank you for helping me remember if I wasn't seeing it. But, what we're gonna do next is, it's not exactly in the same order, but, this one, it talks about the access powers, okay? Right here, so it's actually the third one down. Dexters, access powers, dexters. Click on the third one down. And pay attention to this part though, guys. What we're gonna do is go down toward the bottom of this page
Hi, Sean.
and look for where it has this arrow. Where you
What is
click
that?
that, that's when you need your headphones on if you don't have them on, and it's gonna read the whole page to you. Once you click it, go up to the top and follow the words along while it's reading it for you. And then when you get down to the bottom again, after you listen to it reading it to you, do this little quiz and see if you can answer those 10 questions. Okay, get a new headphones if it's not working. I think you could